right 2 lanes to keep right.
Hey friends, it's Wednesday, September 8th, 2021. Welcome back or welcome aboard to Prepare to Go There. I call it the most overlooked and underrated coaching conversation on the internet. That's just my opinion, but for real, is there anything more important than the future right now? I mean, we got a lot of future to go, so we better make it count. And that's why I'm convinced that the future deserves our focus today. Thank you so much for investing in yourself. I'm convinced when you do that, you'll have more value to give away to those you care about and those you want to influence. And so welcome back to the Future Frontier. I am kind of trying out a new setup right here. Hopefully you can see a little bit of quality improvement. And I learned a trick. I want to see how it goes. I don't like right now the way it is showing up with my face, but that's okay. Trying new things here and there to get better. We're going to be talking about disrupting ourselves for the future. Nobody likes change unless you're a weirdo, but really change is important. It's happening. It's inevitable. And so the real question is, how do we lead change? How do we leverage change for the future? And so we've been kind of building this case, so to speak. How do we identify with the future? And I've been using this metaphor of, going on an international trip, going on an international airplane. And when you're going through time zones, you have to make an intentional choice ahead of time to kind of get temporarily out of sync so that way you will show up ready. And instead of staying up late through the flight, watching all the movies, eating all the food, just acting like there's no tomorrow, you're thinking ahead, you're being proactive, and you're making choices, you're making changes in the flight so that way when you get out of the airplane, you can go enjoy your day. You can minimize or mitigate the jet lag, and you're not trying to catch up. And what happens is in our lives, we have these changes and they happen in a moment, but then we have to deal with the effects of it. We have to catch up from those changes. And there's a big difference between an interruption and a disruption. An interruption is basically a pause or a jolt in your routine, but then you kind of get back to normal. Things get back to normal because it was an interruption, whereas a disruption is a new normal. Disruption is when there's a change that introduces a new normal. And I think a lot of people are waiting on things to get back to normal in one way or the other, but really we can leverage disruption in order to lead ourselves into the future. And we can actually see positive change if we're willing to be proactive. And so I want to get into some calendar rhythms because that's the next thing we want to talk about. We want to talk about how do you disrupt your rhythms for the future. Now, let me get through the slides real quick. Maybe you're new and you're wondering, what is this all about? I think in one big idea, it would be self-leadership. See, I'm convinced that the future is going to need more leaders, not less leaders. And I'm convinced that we're going to need that leadership is going to be more important to talk about, not less important to talk about. And so that's why I want to help leaders from the ground up. And a lot of leaders are talking about a lot of different things, which is cool. But they kind of focus on the flashy stuff or the stuff that, is public or highly visible. And really great leadership starts with the person, the leader, their lifestyle, their integrity, their choices. And many times we can be qualified or disqualified based on things that we were doing way before we got in some sort of positional leadership, because we were baking in mindsets and habits all along the way. And so the reality is most people don't know how to lead others into a better future, simply because they don't know how to lead themselves there first. And so Prepare to Go There is a daily coaching journey where I'm just showing up day after day. I'm showing up for you, and I want you to show up for you too. And the real goal, and I'm going to just kind of put everything out there, put all of my cards on the table or intentions out there, however you want to say it. I'm not trying to impress you, okay? I'm not trying to wow you. I'm not trying to give you something that you probably don't already have. I mean, if you're a leader, if you're passionate about leading yourself, most of you have already been on this journey for years and years and years. I just want to keep you company while you're going through the necessary and unnoticed preparation phase. I want to let you know that there are others like you that are having this conversation, that are leaning forward, that want to go the distance, they want to make a difference, and I want to keep you company. Like, honestly, I want to just have a conversation that will keep you going and keep you growing. That's it. And what I have found in my own life is that I'll put on a podcast or I'll put on a video and I'll just go do work. I'll do the work that I know I need to do. And by listening and being plugged into that conversation, it'll help me cultivate my concentration. It'll be fuel for my focus. And that's what I want to provide here. I want to facilitate a conversation for people who want to focus practically on their future and then lead themselves there tactically day by day. And so if this resonates with you, go ahead and join our email community. We call it the Future Friends. And you get a weekly email from me with all of the content, all these conversations bundled up together. And then that's also how I can share the projects and the products that I'm working on with you in mind. And so I want to share a quote from a legendary leader who I'm so privileged to know personally. His name is Enrique de Bale, and he says, "The way you do something is the way you do everything." The way you do something, man, that is so good. The way you do something is the way you do everything. In other words, the little things will compound into your habits and your trajectory. In other words, your repetition will become your reputation. And so the way you do something today is going to influence and inform the way you're doing everything one day. So today matters, and the preparation we're putting into today matters. There's value, and there's a lasting mission that we get to be a part of. So disrupting our calendar rhythms for the future. Big deal. How do we actually do that? Why would we even want to bring more disruption into our lives and worlds? I mean, isn't all the change and all the craziness that we're seeing enough already? And it's true, we can get overloaded and overwhelmed by all of the course corrections along the way. I mean, we have to continually evaluate what is, politically correct or not politically correct to say, or things that are cool or not cool anymore, things that are trendy or not trendy anymore. I mean, how do you keep up with all of the fads and the fashions and all of the movements and all of the messaging that's happening around us? You would think that we've had enough change for a while. I mean, why can't we all just take a break on this change train? But the truth is that life will keep changing. You will have much, much more disruption. And so the point is that this is a life skill. Okay? Change, you can call it change management or change leadership, but this is a life skill. It's not just an event. It's not just something that happens that you cope, that you recover from. And you say, oh yeah, I did that one time. I did that change thing one time. I grew one time. I got better one time. No. This is a life skill. So either you are driving with a sense of empowerment and ownership, or you're being dragged through this again and again and again. And the way you approach this life skill, this skill set, you can actually get better at change. You can get better at disruption. You can get better at learning. You can get better at growing. You can get better at leveling up. You don't have to live with an impediment. You don't have to live with a limiting belief that says, well, I'm good at some things and I'm bad at other things. And so I'm just going to gravitate towards the things I'm good at, and I'm going to avoid the things that I'm bad at. You do not have to be allergic to new opportunities. You can own those opportunities and say, hey, that was a skill set. This is a skill set, and I can level up. I can grow. I can learn. I'm not going to be held back by what I have done or what's been done to me. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep growing. So this is super important, because if you can learn to disrupt where you are today, it's one of the ways to identify where you are going. So for real, identify where you're going. Another quote was Zig Ziglar. He said, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Your focus matters. What you're focusing on matters. I'm inspired by Jesus, and there's a life principle in the Bible that says, forget everything that's happened and stay focused on the high calling, the upward calling that's in Christ Jesus. There is a principle in staying focused on where you're going. Identifying with the future can actually help you frame up the choices you have to do today. Keenan Callahan says, we look to the future to know what to do with the present. I love that. My mom would teach me all the time, don't let your past determine your future. Like, is your orientation past, present, or is it future, present? Are you like always trying to catch up and keep up, and you're feeling like you're always behind? Or do you put your flag in the future and say, I know who I am, I know where I'm going, and I'm going to figure out a way to lead myself there. I'm not going to be a burden. I'm going to be a strength. I'm not going to live helpless. I'm going to stay hopeful. I'm going to get very, very practical about the days that I'm given, so that way I can give an account and I can have something valuable to give away. So what's the difference between routines and rhythms? Routines and rhythms. Here's an easy way to look at it. Routines get you going. Rhythms keep you going. Routines get you going in the day. They get you going for work. They get you going with the workout again. They help. They are steps you can take when you don't feel it. Routines are like a checklist, the 1, 2, the 3. But a rhythm is a calendar cadence that you're going to be aware of and that you're going to work with in order to keep you going for the long haul. Now, these rhythms can be based on seasons of life, right? Whenever you're single, you have a very different rhythm in your life. You stay up later probably, and you go harder, and you're not thinking about how, your choices are overlapping with other relationships. When you get married, you're in a whole new season, and that creates new rhythms. There's new rhythms. Now, it doesn't, I want to encourage you, whether you're single, whether you're married, I want to encourage you. There is an assignment for every season. There is an assignment for every season. You have to know the purpose for the time you're in right now and leverage it. There are certain things that you can do really, really well as a single. There are certain things you can do much better at being married. And based on your uniqueness, based on your life path, as you're just, leaning forward into what's possible and what's important, you can begin to identify those values and begin to bake them into your calendar. So that way you have a clear calendar cadence. A calendar cadence. It's unbroken. It helps you keep going. Now, with those seasons in your life, when you understand your values and then you can put them into the calendar, whatever we value has to get scheduled. It has to get scheduled. Otherwise, we're just talking the talk. We're just saying, yeah, that'd be good one day. But guys, someday is not a day of the week. Someday is not a day of the week. You have to make it time sensitive. You have to put it in the calendar. And these rhythms are going to be super important for, there we go. These rhythms are going to be super important and super helpful for us. Anybody getting fired up? So I want you to be listening to your own reasons. Why do you do what you do? Do you notice, are you able to evaluate rhythms that you have right now? I mean, here's some easy ones, like working versus resting. That's a rhythm. Working versus resting. How often do you work? It's kind of like a ratio. I work 7 days and then I rest maybe every month. Or I work, 12 hours and then I'm going to rest whatever's left. You have to identify that rhythm, be proactive about it, and build it into your calendar. Don't just wing it and think that it's going to be awesome. There are times and there are scenarios where we kind of trust fall into our preparation and we trust fall into the miracle of the moment. But as a general principle, I want to take ownership of the opportunities I'm given, and I want to show up with something to give. And so having a clear plan and understanding that your life needs a rhythm, your life needs a cadence, your life needs momentum. And we can get that by understanding these rhythms. When you're listening to your reasons, why do you do what you do? You're understanding, you're telling yourself a story. You're actually telling yourself a story right now that justifies the good habits you have, the bad habits you have, the season of life you're in, or the season of life you're waiting on. You're telling a story. And so really the way to disrupt your rhythms is by learning how to reinterpret different moments that need to happen in your life. What do I mean? Reinterpret different moments that are happening in your life. You're going back to the why, and then you put it into the how of your calendar. So now it's not just something that's nice. This is something that's necessary. Spending time with your family is necessary. Working on yourself is necessary. Being a part of a homegrown community is necessary, right? There are things that are not just nice ideas anymore. They are actually necessary for you to become the leader that other people are counting on. So I'm super fired up about this conversation. I think rhythms can be kind of challenging because it's kind of like a big oak tree out here in Texas. We've got all these big oak trees. And man, you can try to bear hug those things and you can't even wrap your arms around them all the time. And it can be super challenging to kind of wrap our arms or wrap our head around rhythms. But it's as simple as this. Do you feel like you're in a state of motion? Are you moving? Do you have this inward propulsion? Do you have this excitement and this momentum about you? Or do you feel like you're dragging, like you're stuck, like things aren't working? You're getting discouraged. It feels like there's so much friction and there's so much baggage. It's kind of pulling you back. Externalize that. Don't just kind of wallow in that all day externalize it and start asking the why question. Why is that happening? What is going on? You become the private investigator on your own schedule, and you begin to diagnose what is going on with your rhythms. And then you realize, oh, wow, this is happening again and again. And if you are blind to some of these seasons and rhythms that are happening, it's a blind spot. You don't see it. And so it's repeating. And it's kind of like Chronicles of Narnia, where you're like in a perpetual winter and you don't know what's going on. But the moment you just exert a little bit of intentionality and you leverage some awareness and you start asking some meaningful questions about what's important and what's possible, and you start actually getting involved, getting involved with the process, things change. Things change for the better. And now you have a story that will keep you going because you've baked in these reasons in the form of rhythms. You know what's important. You know what's valuable. You make space for it. And you realize this is a journey. You're not going to do this overnight, but that's why you want to keep showing up again and again and again. I mean, we thought that when we graduated from high school, all of our theme days, our scheduling, our structure, that we were done with that, right? We don't need to do that anymore. We're grown, we're adults, we're going to just live our own life, YOLO. But the truth is, you're just now the teacher. You're now the leader. You're now the boss. So it doesn't mean you have no structure. It just means it's on you to make the structure. Man, that's so good. It doesn't mean you have no structure anymore. It means that you are the one making the structure. You are the one making the budget. You are the one. It's your budget. It's your calendar. It's your life. But you have to own it. You have to use intentionality and integrity to make it count. I want you to think of this idea of pruning your calendar. Pruning your calendar. A lot of times we don't really set a calendar because we don't want to be boxed in. But what happens is we're blind to what's really going on because we haven't audited all of these commitments or unexpected obligations that are happening. And so if you literally have no visual, it's like driving in the snow. It's like flying through a cloud, which is very turbulent and kind of risky. You have to visualize your rhythms. You have to visualize what keeps coming up every week, what keeps coming up every month, what keeps coming up every quarter. And you've got to find ways to interlock them and integrate them together. Put it all out there. Get it out on paper on purpose. Visualize it, externalize it, and then begin to strategize. How am I going to make all of this fit together? And now it's so fun. Now it's like music. Man, you're making music with your calendar because you got all of these influences and inputs that have uniqueness, that make your life, wonderful. But now they're not clashing. Now they fit together. They're harmonizing because you've been that conductor, getting engaged, getting involved with the ensemble. I'm using a lot of quotes, a lot of metaphors today, but I want to help you prune your calendar rhythms. And if you don't really know what's going on and you're just kind of flowing, you're just kind of making it happen, you might have some blind spots. You might not realize that there are some air pockets or there are some leaks in your boat that's taking up a lot more time. You can be wondering, man, where's all my time going? I don't feel the energy to do what I know I need to do. And I keep talking about these goals again and again and again, but I'm not actually making progress. It's your rhythms. There are rhythms that can be self-sabotaging, or there are rhythms that can be force multiplying. And so knowing your rhythms, actually externalizing it on the calendar. Now, I'll tell you a secret. I don't look at my calendar every day. Okay, I just said it. I know I'm talking about planning and all that good stuff, but I do not plan. I don't look at my calendar every day. Instead of like this time management thing where the calendar is leading me, I use the calendar as a tool. I use the calendar as a tool so that I'm mapping my day, I'm mapping my time, and I'm beginning to make a better plan for the next time. So I'm willing to improvise in the moment. I'm always trying to be available to people when they need me. I'm always ready to like jump in when there's something exciting or something alarming. Like I want to be present, but at the same time, I'm learning. I'm thinking ahead. I'm going to take this and bookmark it. And then when I go back to my weekly planning session or my, monthly kind of focus group or focus time, I'm going to say, okay, how could I have a better day? How could I have a better week? How could all of these inputs and influences fit together, work better together? And it's so fun because you're mapping it out and you're making discoveries and making decisions along the way. So here's something that I want you to consider, and then we'll land the plane. A question for you. Does your calendar help you lean forward? Is your calendar leaning forward, or is your calendar pulling you backwards? What do I mean? If your calendar is just a bunch of reminders and things that you're trying to keep up with, and is things that you're basically dropping the ball, and so this calendar is your safety net, instead of you building moments, habits, rhythms that actually keep you ahead. I use this one a lot because I think this is where a lot of people live. But like, what if you had moments that helped you think ahead, plan ahead, budget your time better, work on projects before they're due? Like, you can schedule that stuff just as much as you schedule in the late stuff. And so let your calendar be a visual representation of what you value and the commitments you've already made, but the goals that you've put out in the future. And then you can be looking at your future literally month by month. You can have a beautiful map of where you're going because you're talking about it in conversations, you're working on it in your planning and you're preparing. I mean, you're looking to the future to know what to do with the present. And if it's on your calendar, it should be an active project because you're leaning forward. It's not something like, oh yeah, it's on the calendar, I'll get to it when it like starts blowing up and it starts grabbing my attention, and oh no, I forgot about that, and I only have 10 days to do that massive project, and I had the whole year to work on it. Don't do that. Instead, be intentional about your rhythms. So disrupt your rhythms by reinterpreting the moments in your life. Ooh, so good. Many of you might be feeling like your lot in life is settled. You're done, you've plateaued, and you really can't see things getting better. I have this conversation many times with friends and leaders, and it normally goes something like this. Well, that would be awesome, but come on, Peter. I have to be realistic. I have responsibilities. I have things that I have to do. I have kids. I don't think I can do all of that. Guys, don't let your excuses convince you that where you are is going to stay the same way. But believe that things are getting better and that you're leveling up and that more is waiting on you. And get proactive. Roll up your sleeves. Get engaged with the work. of redeeming your time and say, okay, if it's important and if it's possible, I'm going to go for it. I can't do everything at once, but if I focus, follow one course until success, I can figure it out. Like, I just believe for every struggle that's on my radar, there's a strategy that's available. And all I got to do is open myself up again and humble myself again and say that awesome prayer, the prayer that's very effective, help Lord, and just say, give me a strategy. And then it's got to show up on the calendar. It's got to show up on the calendar, because what gets scheduled gets done. That's a Michael Hyatt quote. So reinterpret your events. Don't just say that's a fluke, that'll never change. You can actually renegotiate your commitments. You can renegotiate when things happen, how often things happen. Maybe stuff's happening weekly and you say, I need to slow down my rhythms. I'm going to start doing that every other week or every month. Or maybe you're saying, I'm feeling a lot of priority in this area, in my health. Mission critical. Your health is mission critical. You can't have, a stagnant rhythm with your health. So you say, I need to throttle up. I need to do something more aggressive in this area. You can negotiate that too. The catch is it showing up somewhere? Is it in your calendar? Not like a reminder system, but as a map that helps you suspend time, suspend judgment, and actually start changing some time blocks, reworking some things to say, it doesn't all work right now because there's stuff out of order. But if I'll take the time, I'll lean into this, I'll actually improve these rhythms, and now they're working together. Now they'll be working together. So homework, you ready? You have to look at your life from a higher view. You got to get out of the day-to-day. You got to stop being reactive. You got to start thinking more proactively. And you have to be identifying what is already happening right now. What are all of the pieces that are moving? Let me get all those moving pieces, put them out on paper on purpose, or put them in a calendar, and let me just see it. And just by looking at it visually, does it excite me or does it scare me? Does it, bore me? Does it make me feel exhausted? I mean, just look at all the stuff you're already doing and then say, how can this get better? And a lot of times we got these big dreams and these big projects, but it's like we're trying to jam them and cram them in all these little cracks in our calendar when we haven't really made rhythms where we can get them done over time. So this is not rocket science. I'm just trying to fire you up to stay focused on your future. Get the future off the back burner, put it on the front burner where it belongs. I think there are a lot of you're waiting on other people to do the work for you. You're waiting on other things to happen before you happen to do something. And really take the ownership, take the call to action and say, I'm not helpless. In fact, I'm not just going to be at zero. I'm going to go over the line. I'm going to start being helpful. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to improve the conditions. I'm going to improve working morale. I'm going to improve the family situation. We're not just going to be dragging our feet. We're going to be spending quality time together. We're going to be doing it much more often. We're going to start getting intentional about our moments. We're going to start experiencing a new vibrancy and a new life that comes into our evenings and our weekends. Why? Because we were reinterpreting these events. They're not just things that we have to do. We're reinterpreting these events and we're saying what's important, what's possible, what do we value, what's the emphasis of this season of our life, what are the roles and the goals that we're going to start to build in with a view. And when you can really look at the landscape of your life, you put that all together in a new and needed way, and then you feel a little bit more confident about going on that journey. So guys, if this was helpful, go ahead and share this, like it, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I really appreciate you taking the time to go through this. I want to remind you that Future Friday is coming. I love Future Friday because it's the time we get to talk about whatever is on your radar. What are you working on? What are you thinking through? What are the sticking points that we can push through and power through? And this Friday, I actually have a guest, a great friend, is going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking about disruption, and we'll be learning how to leverage disruption, not be afraid of disruption. Your life is going to have disruption, and that means you're growing. That means you're changing. And even when you go through something you don't want to go through, it's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to grow. It really is. And so don't be allergic to disruption, but lean in, get the mindset, get the skill set, and then leverage it. Because as a leader, you know what we're doing? We're leading people into change. We're leading them into maturity. We're leading them into habits that they don't have yet. We're leading them to make choices and changes that they don't feel up to yet. And so we're actually causing disruption in many cases when we're introducing new strategies, and we're asking them to make different commitments, and we're adding in all of these calendar rhythms that they may or may not be comfortable with yet. We're actually leveraging disruption to help people move into that better future. And so if we're not willing to disrupt ourselves, then why should we be making all these changes for other people too? Let's learn how to do it correctly. Let's do it effectively. Let's do it sustainably. Let's do it sustainably, so that way we can go the distance and make a difference. I want to remind you, you're going places, and that's why I keep showing up to encourage you. You really are. Keep it up and keep going. And if you know you're going places, then you better make today count and prepare to go there. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for jumping on.